Hi class and welcome to this week's lesson, lesson 10. We're going to be starting a new unit this week, so we're moving on from budgeting. I hope that you guys enjoyed the budgeting unit and I hope that you're utilizing it, keeping up on those expense trackings. Last week you made that nice budget for the application activity. I hope you're keeping up on it and I hope it's a good tool for you in the future and that you can always use it. So now we're going to be switching our focus. Now we're going to be talking about something called thinking errors. And I really like this topic because one part that I find it interesting is that I don't remember ever taking a class that formally talked about this. So I feel like I learned a lot as I looked through this material the first time I taught this course about a year ago. And so it's really good information. I mean, it's things that I feel like maybe I've kind of learned just by going through the motions, but it's good to kind of see it all formalized. So there's 10 typical thinking errors that are out there, and I'm not going to go through all 10 of them because the lesson does a really good job of that, and you got plenty of material to read and everything there. So, but just one part I did want to point out in the lesson that I really liked is that there's kind of a chart, if you not a chart, I don't know, a table, and it talks about what causes some of these thinking errors. So it kind of lists the thinking error and like something that might cause it, like you're stressed or you're tired or things like that. And I just find it really interesting because it's like, man, how many times have I like had a bad judgment call, and it's usually because of something related to that, right? And so anyways, I just find it really enlightening. It's one of those things where it's just like, you gotta make sure that you're in the right mindset when you're making big decisions and stuff. And I'm one that I don't like to do things on impulse, and so I always find like when I do things on impulse, that's when I usually make a thinking error. I like to think things all the way through, probably a little too much. I probably think about it, a little too much than I need to. But anyway, so that's what we're going to be talking about in life skills, is thinking errors. In our writing, we're going to be starting a new writing assignment, or we're going to be a new segment of writing called persuasive essay. This is it's a great topic, and one of the big things of persuasive essays is making sure that you really know your audience, who you're talking to, who you're trying to persuading. You can't persuade someone to do something if you don't know anything about that person. So we're going to be talking about persuasive essays, some introduction to that. It still follows the same formatting as any other essay, right? You're going to have an introduction, you're going to have a body, you're going to have a conclusion. You know that by now. Just a little bit different style of writing of what you put in there, maybe compared to the informative essay that you've written. So in math this week, I'm gonna kind of recommend that you start early. The reason why is just because there's a lot more material to go over. We're going to be starting exponents. It's not necessarily because it's that much increase in difficulty over our fractions. We're finally done with fractions. Well, not done with fractions, but we'll always use fractions, right? That's the thing with math. You'll learn as you take more and more math classes. Math never is one of these things where you do it and then it goes away. It all builds on each other, right? So it's like, oh, now you know fractions. Oh, now we can do this. Oh, now you know exponents. Oh, now we can do this, right? And you're always going to use those things. That's probably one of the things I like about math is it's one of these subjects where it's like everything can kind of build on it, where I'm not downplaying other courses, but something like a history class, right? If I'm learning about the U.S. history, it may not have as big of an impact, when the next semester if I learn about the history of China or something. There's some interconnections probably a little bit, but still, math really builds on each other. So start your math early this week. There is a lot more material to read through and videos to watch. And last but not least, what I want to talk about was your application activity. Your application activity this week is that you'll be turning in your informative essay, your essay you've been working on the last few weeks. So I know it's kind of a little confusing because it's like, wait, in writing, we're starting this new persuasive essay and we're getting some introduction, but your assignment you're turning in this week is actually your finalized informative essay, what you have been working on the last few weeks. So a couple of things I want to hit on there is, one of the requirements is that you're going to use a credible source. If you remember a couple weeks back or a few weeks back now, we talked about how can you find a credible source. Make sure that you have a credible source in there. And I mentioned it in that video, and I'm going to mention it again. If your credible source says, Wikipedia says this, that's going to be a deduction of points right there. So make sure your source is credible. and you should be, and you'll do good. The other thing I would mention is take time to read through that rubric that's on the page, the page where you submit the assignment. Down below, it has the full rubric, and it breaks it down points by category. We've talked about formatting. That's going to be important on it. We've talked about credible sources. That's going to be a part of it. Does it have an intro? Does it have a conclusion? All those good things that go into a paper. And it's right there on the rubric. So there shouldn't be any big surprises, right? You should be able to read that rubric, look at your paper, and say, hey, does my paper have this? Check. Okay, good. Does my paper have this? Check. Okay, good. And if you do that, you're going to get a good grade. I can already almost guarantee it without even reading your paper, because that rubric is set up such that if you follow that, then you're going to do good. So with that, if you have any questions about your essay prior to submitting, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your essays. All right, that's all I've got for you this week. Kind of a shorter video. Woohoo! I know sometimes I can get a little wordy on here and they're a little long, so cutting it short this week. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week.